All
There
right,
we
I
are.
think we're ready.
Hey, Facebook family, we are here. All right, with that said, we just want to thank y'all for coming in tonight and just staying with us on Monday nights for these Married Mondays to bring you a little bit of knowledge and wisdom to your marriage, so you can just grow together and
Be better.
become one. Yeah.
So, of course, y'all know we represent Crown Kingdom Cultural Center with Bishop Bush as our leader and Denise Bush as well. And so we are going to take from yesterday's lesson and just very specifically apply it to marriage.
Right.
So we know the broadcast didn't go out yesterday due to some technical difficulties. So we will talk a little bit about what the analogy of taking the lid off is, how it applies to marriage, and how you can learn from it today. So thank you, Trey Smith and Charles Brown.
Fam.
Yep, those that I see joining. Somebody else I missed, Latasha Hyler Edwards. We appreciate you for joining us. It's Josephine Green. So we appreciate y'all. As always, we encourage y'all to share this message. You never know who you can really help significantly. A lot of marriages suffer in silence. People don't tell others that they're struggling for whatever reasons. But the downside of that is they don't get the help they need. So just your forwarding these lessons to people who just might be interested. Doesn't mean their marriage is in trouble. It just means that they are married and they might be interested in the content that we're discussing today. So thank you, Lakeisha Roberts, for joining in. Good evening to you as well. You ready?
Just about.
Okay.
All right.
You were sharing?
Yeah, I'm sharing.
Very appropriate.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about the hard places, the series we've been learning in church, and specifically tonight we're going to talk about taking the lid off.
Taking the lid off.
Taking the lid
I
off.
tell you what, that Minister Lakeisha Roberts, she be on it. Yes, so appreciate you. And I see your comment, Latasha. We are always glad to hear that what we're putting out here is helping others. So thank you for that feedback. We do appreciate that. All right, taking the lid off. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. We're going to explain exactly what taking the lid off means.
It's
so
really an analogy.
Right.
Yeah, it's an analogy. You want to talk about it some?
Well, when you're talking about taking the lid off, what normally is on a lid is a lid comes on a jar. And then in the jar it represents life. So when there's the lid is on that jar, it closes up what's in there. There's goodness. There's substance in the jar that can make your life better. So that's what we're going to talk about those things, and the jar represents your best life. So when we're talking about the jar, over the years there have been creative ways to open that jar, right?
Yes, I've had that kind of problem myself, especially if I'm trying to prepare a sandwich or something. It's always peanut butter and jelly is the first thing I think about, the jelly jar.
Yes.
That gets stuck, and you just want to access that jelly and can't seem to get to it. And it can be frustrating. And it makes you have to try to figure out how to solve this issue. Very rarely do I know anybody that will just say, or a pickle jar is another one that can be hard. Very rarely do I know somebody who just say, "Oh, just forget it. I don't want pickles or I don't want jelly." No, you want what's inside
that jar. There's reason
you
grab
want it. Yeah, it looks too good to you. You really, really want it, and so you're left with the option of, how do I get the lid off?
How? And like you said, through the years, we've come up with several ways to get that lid off.
Yeah.
One of the easiest ways is to just screw the lid off.
Yeah, but if you could do that, you wouldn't have the problem.
But see, then it's a little bit of an obstacle. And then there are other ways to get the lid off, like what the bishop said yesterday. You can. Well,
I can think of lots.
Pop the top.
I've taken like a butter knife or a spoon and try to pop. Get some air to pop the seal.
Right.
But if you don't do that the right way, you can actually break the jar.
You can.
But if you do it right,
the jar.
If you apply the right procedure effectively, you pop that lid off and you can have access to your best life.
So
there's other ways too, though.
Okay, you want to talk about the other ways? Is you can take the bottom of that jar and pop the bottom of it. You can hit it a couple of times. That kind of loosens up the top, breaks the seal at the top,
shake things up,
and you can get in that jar that way.
Yeah.
One way that I've come up with that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is I've taken a butter knife and just tap around the top of the jar, the lid itself. Not necessarily put it up under the lid and pop it, but just tap around it 2 or 3 times, and then it's easier to open.
I've seen people do that. I haven't found that to be effective, and that's interesting.
One for me.
But that's interesting though, is because some strategies that work for some people might not work for others.
Right.
Or if you don't apply the strategy the right way, you may not get the results that you're looking for.
Hence, the relationship in marriages. The way she used to open the jar, or our marriage used to open that jar, may not work for your marriage. So let's talk about what the lid can represent in your marriage.
Well, the actual lid, the thing that's stopping you from accessing what's inside that jar, is it can be represented by just those cycles that we go through in marriage, to where, and what I mean by that is if you've been married, I would say more than 8 years, you probably have had some cycles in your relationship, even if it's seasonal or even if it's whatever the cycle might be, to where the same issues come up and it seems like they never really get resolved. They keep coming up. It's a problem, and it keeps this ongoing tension between the two of you. And so that can be a lid. It's that, I call it a cycle of disharmony.
Okay.
It just keeps that disharmony and disagreement keeps coming up. And it's cyclical, and you can't always, sometimes it takes a while to figure out that it is a cycle.
Right.
But like I say, the longer you're married, you start to really recognize that it is in fact a cycle. But that doesn't mean you know how to handle it or how to eliminate or break that cycle.
Right.
But that can be a lid from stopping you from really enjoying your marriage and getting to the best part of your marriage. Another thing that can be a lid would be conflicting opinions about family decisions. If you're not good at making big decisions together, or decisions that affect the family, because it's your family, it's my family, and it's his family. And if we have contrasting views for how to rear children, for raising children, or if we have contrasting views about where we want to live, or when to purchase things, if we don't have a good system of making those decisions, that can be a lid on the jar. If there's all that frustration that comes from that not being on the same page, that can be a lid that can stop you from really enjoying your marriage and enjoying your relationship. Financial problems
definitely one.
That's a big one. That's a lid that can truly be an obstacle.
Right. And it can be if both of y'all don't have good money management sense, or just knowledgeable about how money should be spent and used between the both of you. That could be a problem, a huge problem to some people.
Or if you just don't agree. Even if you have 2 different strategies, that may work. But if you're not in agreement about the strategy that will be used in your household, or if one person don't stick to the strategy. Yeah, we've talked about financial unfaithfulness. Is that the right term? Financially infidelity. Financial infidelity. That can certainly be a lid. It just kind of steals the joy out of sharing a life together when you can't get your financial situation right. And not having enough money can be. It don't have to be a lid, but it certainly can be.
Right. Or
not spending enough, not being emotionally available for one another, or just not being able to having constant miscommunication about your relationship. That can be a lid as well. Feeling unloved and misunderstood. Just that ongoing hurt. Mistrust that can come about.
Stuff that you bring into the marriage, and stuff that hadn't been resolved before you got married. That mistrust from different relationships or the same relationship. You just got to get over those hurdles. You got to take the lid off of that issue.
Well, you can certainly recognize that the lid is stuck when those issues are present. And also fears or emotional scars from your childhood, those emotional wounds that may not even be a scar. It may still be very much open, very much an issue in your life. When you bring those things with you, which a lot of people do, I dare say most people do, depending on kind of at what stage you actually where you get married. But particularly if you marry young and you haven't worked through those personal issues yourself, then that can bring about problems in your marriage that prevent you from really being able to enjoy your marriage relationship and to enjoy your partner. So anything else you can think of? I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Just your career goals and aspirations can interfere with the good life or the best life you can live. If you feel like somebody is not supporting you in your career goals and your career aspirations, that's a lid. Some people actually call that holding me back from me going forth and what makes me a better person. That could be a lid.
Yeah.
So, you got to be careful about the lids you put on your own marriage,
And just imposing obstacles for your spouse out of selfishness.
Yeah.
Those are things that you probably can identify some things in your relationship. We're just kind of trying to get you thinking about it, so you can examine your situation and maybe see what some of those things are that's preventing your relationship from really from you accessing and relishing in the best parts of your marriage. Your marriage should be a good place. It should be a place. It should be a safe place. It should be a place of growth. It's a place of partnership. And if you're missing those things, there's something stopping you from accessing it.
Right.
And we're referring to that as a lid tonight.
So.
We're not talking ESPN though. So, one thing, the next thing we want to kind of move into with this conversation is thinking about what it takes to even remove a lid. A lid that's stuck, something that's preventing you from experiencing what's good under that lid. And it's going to take some creativity. It's going to take some ingenuity. It takes gathering some knowledge, just like we talked about, when you're trying to experiment on how to take that lid off. It can be frustrating. And sometimes people get to a point of feeling hopeless or feeling that they just don't have the answer. I remember growing up, if we couldn't get a lid off, and we used to have the grip, you know what I'm saying, where you can, like a little circular piece of plastic rubber.
Right.
And you put the grip on and try to open that jar, and you put all your energy into it. And it's like, like you're trying so hard, and you just can't seem to get it off. And, generally your consensus would be, well, I don't have the strength to get this off. It's already got me defeated.
Right.
So what do you do?
Quit.
Give it to somebody else.
You give it to somebody else, or you just quit. Because we're
but you want to get your pickle.
Yeah, you do want your pickle.
So what do people do?
They want somebody else to open it for them.
You got to go outside of yourself.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
You got to go outside of yourself and see if somebody else can help you come up with the answer. And so for me, my next step would always be to maybe give it to one of my parents and see if they can loosen it up or help me out.
Right.
So that goes to maybe seeking some help from mentors.
And that's what you should do when you can't do it in your own strength. Talking about natural strength, but it comes with the spiritual strength when it comes to a lot of marriage stuff. You go to somebody else that can help you get into that jar. But quitting should be an last option to do in your marriage. It should be the last thing, the last option in all. Go through all the ways you can use to open that lid, but also get some help to do that from some mentors.
Well, it seemed like you kind of get yourself exasperated And sometimes in marriage, people get so frustrated and exasperated for trying, and that's the point, like you were saying, that people would quit, and that's not really the answer.
No.
You got to be able to look outside of yourself, and we can never underestimate the power of seeking wisdom and seeking and praying, asking God to intervene in your situation. You've got to go outside of yourself. When you don't have the answers among the two of you, or I can't see that what you're suggesting is a good answer, and you can't see that what I'm suggesting is a good answer for us to solve our conflict, that's the time you may go to counseling. That's the time you may seek professional counseling, pastoral counseling, which can be professional as well, mentoring. Thankfully, in the age we live in, there's lots of information out there as far as books. You have to be mindful about the sources from what you read, or what you look at on the internet. You got to be mindful about those, where that's coming from, and know if it's consistent with the Word of God. Let me read what Brittany, right? But isn't it okay if you get too frustrated to take a break and then come back and talk about it later? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not, I've heard people say, oh, we're going to sit here and hammer this out. We ain't going to bed, until we get this handled. I can't say that that's a good strategy. I just have not found that to be a good strategy, because you just get to more frustration. And people sometimes will use that scripture, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. Well, you don't have to have wrath for you to go to sleep, with a problem. Pray about it. Come back together at an agreed upon time when you're more mentally and emotionally ready, physically rested, so that you can then talk about a solution. A lot of times when you go to God during those times that you can't find a solution right then with each other, choose that you're going to decide to take a break. Pray about it. Make sure that you're open to hearing from God. It's not about just having your way. It's about, Lord, help me see a solution. Help us.
Yes.
Yeah, give us a solution for this. Give us some wisdom. Help us to work together, to hear each other when we speak, and hear each other's hearts, and come to a place of agreement. And y'all, that works.
It does. It works for us.
It works. I mean, we have gotten to some stalemates.
Because sometimes when you're in a stalemate, as my wife just explained, I use the word she used. Sometimes you're just tired and frustrated from your day, and you just don't have enough energy in you to get through it that night.
Right.
Your mind is being occupied by so many other things that you should be able to go and get some good rest, and then you come back to the next day when you've got over the day. So sometimes it's just best to table it, agreed upon tabling the discussion, and go get some rest, pray, and come back to it.
And it's just like we got quite a few comments. I was trying to get to the bottom. Effective conflict resolution requires a scheduled time, which is what Bishop Bush typed in. And y'all, we have said that so many times, that plan to come together to resolve your conflict. Get some strategies for how to resolve your conflict, but come to the table ready to come about to be a part of making a solution.
Right.
Not coming to fight, but coming to resolve the conflict. And so you are, you can call it fighting, but that's not really what you're doing when you're looking for a conflict. You are going to have a conflict, but we have a conflict, and we're going to resolve it.
Because conflict in itself is a lid too.
Oh, yeah.
Because the longer you continue to go through conflicts, you're not moving forward. It makes you, when you solve the conflict and you're able to agree, that's a step forward.
So you're saying leaving the conflicts unresolved is a lid.
It's a lid, yes. But the conflict is not. The conflict just can be for growth. But unresolved conflict is a lid. Right. You got to take that off there so you can get what you need as a couple and move forward. Right?
Have you ever been to a place where you felt that there was no solution?
Talking about with us? No, I've never been to that place.
Really?
because we can always go to somebody. We always, when I say
have
it
you
made
not
no
been,
for me.
Have you not been to a point that you didn't even really want to go to nobody?
Well, see, here's the thing. I know for me, a lot of the stuff that we went through early on, and now on the backside of what we did, I knew I didn't have the wisdom to go through it. So I knew going to somebody for help could help us out.
Okay.
But then I think there was one time where I think I told you, I'm not going to talk to anybody.
Just cutting up.
I'm not, you can go by yourself. I'm not going to anybody. But then there was prayer without ceasing. And my heart was changed. So
Your
that's
prayer? Your prayer?
Yeah, my prayer. Because I knew this wasn't good, and I didn't have enough in me to get through what we were going through. I didn't have enough knowledge, enough wisdom.
What's interesting to me is I can't even remember the stuff that was so hard for us to get through. I mean, I just can't even remember what we were fussing about.
Well, when we went to the bishop and the first lady, they told us, what y'all two arguing about really isn't nothing.
I don't even remember what it was.
I don't either. That means it wasn't.
It was stupid.
Yeah.
You get so caught up in... who is that with the punches?
No. I did.
That's you. What you got going on?
I don't know. Ooh.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is right on time, though.
I know, right? Lord speaking. Yeah, so I can't even remember what was so, I don't know, life ending, what had us in such disagreement,
Right.
Because I can remember just like, this ain't going nowhere. It's just a waste of time. He not changing. He ain't trying to change. And I'm not trying to keep dealing with whatever was the problem. I really don't even know. I don't know. I don't even remember.
It was something we had to feel a certain way about. Because if you were like that and I was like that, then it must have been.
But,
something.
my point really is that it can get to be so, you get so caught up in the act of the fight and like the disagreement and wanting to prove your point that you're just arguing for the sake of arguing. And man, that can really stop the progress, and it makes you not want to be with that person who you're there for, the person you chose to spend the rest of your life with. You should be the person who should be your partner on your side, and it makes you feel that person is your enemy. I can remember feeling that way, or feeling that you're not even friends.
Right.
And so that definitely was a lid for us. We just couldn't access. And the funny thing is, other people could see the goodness between us, but we couldn't see it.
Two individuals trying to bring it together.
Yeah, it was the disagreement, the lack of agreement. It's just true. Two people can't walk together unless they agree. So other than that, you're just two miserable people
trying to get along,
not trying to get along, just constantly. It was just one big constant argument, and I just can't believe that. Thinking back, I can't even remember
what it was.
Yeah, what was so bad, or what was so important. I think both of us are stubborn.
I know you are. You were. She was a stubborn young lady. She softened a lot.
There's something to be said for self-analysis.
I know. I agree. I was stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
I was stubborn, self-centered, conceited. I was all that.
Mm-hmm. I can co-sign on that.
Well, I ain't asked you to because I admitted it.
But you're better.
I am.
Much better.
I try to be.
You are.
Every year I get better. Older and wiser. Things I used to thought that matter really ain't that important no more.
No, it's really not.
And that's what makes this what we're doing. Hopefully we can help somebody get to the point where we are. And as we continue to listen and go to it, get advice from our mentors, we can get where they are. So, it's all stages.
And hopefully you don't have to go through some of the headache that we went through if you can catch it early. Because a lot of this, I think, if we had known how to kind of have conversations that were more moving towards a solution, or if we knew how to kind of take a pause and take a break, like Brittany was saying earlier, just take a break and come back. But it was always, somebody got to have the last word, somebody got to have the most sustaining point, somebody got to back down and acquiesce. That was always what seemed to be so important for both of us, and it really didn't mean anything.
And that's we went around that bush a lot.
Immaturity.
Yes. Somebody got to have the last word, and somebody got to have the last word. Call you petty, and then you're just like, oh, you just a know-it-all. And we just went around that. It was unfruitful to the marriage. And we're all about, in my mindset, all about growth and going forward and doing what needs to be done.
Well, it makes a difference to the mindset. I think you just said that. But even in the midst of conflict, if you switch and focus on listening instead of focusing so much on being heard, because when the other person has feel that they've been heard, they're more likely to listen to you. And so that makes a big difference. It sort of diffuses the flame. Instead of, you could throw oil on a flame, and make it, I meant to say, what do you throw on a flame? No.
Somebody to put it out?
To make it worse.
Oh, gas?
Gas, that's what I was trying to say. So, when you are just focused on yourself, you're just putting gas, more fuel to the fire, versus that soft answer turning away wrath. And that takes maturity to get to that point, to where you can give a soft answer in the midst of whatever chaos you got going on. So, and the funny thing is, both of us in work relationships and stuff really didn't have a lot of conflict. We could get along with other people with no problem, but trying to live a life together and build a life together with two different opinions and not having the right skills to communicate.
And see, that's the thing about it is,
that was a lid for us.
Yeah, Brittany said, "In what stage is this? The petty stage where you have to have the last word."
Child, we lived there a long time.
We did.
A long time.
And the thing about having the last word, it really doesn't matter.
It really doesn't. The point is for you to be able to work together. It's about coming to agreement. It's not about the last word. It's about having the same word
at the end. Yes.
Getting on the same page. And that requires, you got to quiet your spirit, and allow, trying to get to the end. We got a lot of comments tonight. I can't see them. You can probably see them better than I can. You got to be able to quiet your spirit and be able to hear what your partner is saying and respond to what they are saying before you can be so, which makes it easier for you to give your response. But when you're just fighting to be heard and you yourself are not even sowing the seed for what you want to receive, you want to be heard, but you're not planting that first seed of hearing your partner. You reap what you sow, and that goes for the good and the bad.
That's a principle.
Yeah, it's a biblical principle that that's very important in marriage. You reap what you sow. So if you want to be heard, hear.
Right.
Stop and listen and really hear what your spouse is saying. Acknowledge and validate what they're saying, and it makes it so much easier for you to be heard. Yeah, that's it, Brittany.
Happens.
That's that stage that you have to learn to work through. So you have to learn some skills. You got to learn some maturity. You got to learn how to. I'm careful about telling women to be quiet, because a lot of times we do need to be quiet. But you don't need to be quiet in that you don't have a voice in the marriage. There's a balance to it.
Yeah, quiet. I don't know if quiet is the right advice to give them, but be careful about how you're trying to explain your point. Not to create wrath in the words that you're using. Mm-hmm. Use words that will bring understanding and really get out what you're trying to say to him. Or in a productive way,
yeah, and in a respectful way.
Right.
You can't let respect go out of the window.
Right.
And that's easy to do.
It is, especially when, like you said, fuel to the fire. When it's fire, everybody want to have something to say. Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to keep that fire down, a respectful word, or just being able to say it in a different way will sometimes quench that fire. And then you'll be able to be heard, and you can say what you need to say.
And it's interesting because fire burns. It
does.
destroys.
That's what it's designed to do.
It destroys. So you don't want to add fuel to that fire. You want to be a agent in the relationship that can bring about peace. But it takes getting those skills, and even just you guys being tuned in here today, like Brittany says, she's gonna work on it. So she might not have had that thought before she came on here tonight and participated in this lesson. So we want you guys to get what you need, and we're here for that, to give you ideas and resources and strategies and skills for you to work on. You got to do your own work, just like we did and still do. We still do a lot. We still have a lot of work to do. And we actively work on our relationship, and so we encourage you guys to do the same. So, and that's how you can take the lid off. You need to know when it's time for you to get some outside counsel. You need to seek some skills and some resources to help you build a better relationship. You don't always have the answers between the two of you.
No.
Sometimes you do not have all the answers between the two of you.
You sure don't.
So humble yourselves and submit to wisdom and submit to God's way of doing things. Yeah, Brittany, you're going to get there. You still young, but y'all been married long enough that you're having to go through the things that people go through. But you go through those things in order to access the good life, to get to the good part of the relationship. It doesn't come just because you want it to. It does take work to get there. And it takes growth, ongoing growth. So, yeah, be respectful. That's the truth, Lakeisha Roberts. Be respectful. It's not what you say, but how you say it. And it takes some practice.
For that, yes.
I mean, for some people it might come naturally, but I can't. That ain't my testimony. So sometimes it takes, and that's just not for women too. It's also for men. I've seen men talk very harshly to their wives, and that's not gender specific. It's just a matter of showing respect, showing love, and allowing the fruit of the Spirit to be manifest in your life towards your spouse. That's important. We got to remember our spouse is a child of God, or our spouse is another human. You know, we can't take for granted that because we're so close to this person that we can treat them in a kind of way. So that takes some acknowledgement and some practice to know that you need to be intentional about how you speak to your spouse and how the tone and all of that. It takes a word. It can be hard. We talked a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, about personal ignorance, like not being aware, low self-awareness. Right. And so it can take, it takes some learning sometimes. I know you used to record our conversations when we would have arguments and stuff. Yeah,
because she would. Well, did you know why I recorded?
I know why you. You can go ahead.
I ain't gonna speak. No,
you speak for you. I don't speak for you.
I mean, I'm just see if you knew why I was recording.
I think he was looking for ammunition.
Not necessarily looking for ammunition, because in arguments that we've had, my wife has a mind like an elephant. She remembers a lot of stuff, and she's a very intelligent woman. Elephants.
I mean, I take the intelligent part, but I don't think my memory is that great. Well, go ahead.
She'll come up and say stuff that I've said. And I'm like, I didn't say that. And we'll go back and forth. I didn't say it. Yes, you did. You did say it. So I started recording it.
And what did you find?
I found out that there may have been a segment that we talked about within that disagreement that could have come off as if I said it like you heard it. But it never stated that the way it was never like she intended it like it said.
What? Say that again. You lost
it. Never was intended like you interpreted it.
Okay.
Yeah. It never was.
So what you're saying is there was a misunderstanding between what you said, what you meant by what you said,
right,
and what I understood by what you said. And that's valuable.
That was genuine.
Because that happens a lot.
It does. So if you don't sit there and argue for 45 minutes and you ain't heard nothing each one of you said other than what has hurt your feelings, you're not gonna hear what the other person's saying. So that's why I started recording them, because if we gonna argue, I'm gonna record it. So that helped us. If that nugget helps you, use it.
But where are you recording it for ammunition?
No, girl. It was recorded for growth.
Okay. Did you find, and what did you notice in recording those arguments?
That I need to be a lot more specific with my words, and when we talked, I need to listen more to what you were saying to me instead of what I interpreted that you were saying.
You let the Lord use you.
Don't
okay?
he?
Yeah,
He'll do it.
That was good.
The Lord will do it.
I mean, you do. I find sometimes when I'm in therapy sessions with kids, I have to record what we're doing because I have to go back and score the test. And sometimes I notice that the way I said something sounded differently from the way I meant it to be. And I mean, recording it can be a valuable tool. Just because it allows you to be more self-aware, because you just don't, just like your voice sounds different when it's recorded than what it sounds to you personally. So there's value in hearing yourself recorded and paying attention to how you appear from the outside of yourself. So there's certainly value in that.
So it's been a good conversation tonight. You know, we started about 5 minutes later than we normally do, and it's about 7:41ish right now. So with that said, you got any final comments?
Not without going into more. I think we put some things out there that were helpful, and we really appreciate you guys for interacting with us tonight. And I feel like it's helpful to others when we do that. And thank you guys for typing in some of the points that we're talking about. I think that's very helpful to others as well. So we appreciate y'all. We will say that next week will be our last Marriage Monday for 2021. We take the last 2 weeks of the year off from everything as much as possible. It's my philosophy. I ain't working. I need some rest.
Yes.
So the last 2 weeks of the year, that's pretty much my MO. Is we just gonna shut it all down those last 2 weeks of the year. I think that's a healthy thing to do.
Yes.
So
I'm in total agreement.
Yes.
We are in total agreement with that, Facebook. Because, like she said, I'm tired too. And I told a lot of my, co-workers that I'm looking forward to the Christmas break.
Yeah, you've been working hard.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So I do pray for you.
Thank you.
In your struggle, but you're gonna come through. All right, so thank y'all. And you want to close it out because I know you so enjoy that part of it.
Oh, yes. With that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.
Good night.